Hello everyone and welcome back to Designs by Danny. First of all, I must apologize for not uploading videos in more of a timely fashion. As you can tell by my voice, I'm a slight bit under the weather. So if you hear me sniffling or coughing, I apologize in advance. I'm not quite certain if it's the allergies or a head cold. But at any rate, today we are going to be making a centerpiece out of flowers that are made from tissue paper as well as coffee filters. Now, I learned how to do both of these from another YouTuber that many of you have already watched her videos, and I hope you've subscribed to her videos because they are phenomenal. Her name is Hey Angela Marie, and I'm going to link her YouTube channel in the description box. So if you'd like to see how she makes things, please, visit her channel, click that bell, and sign up for the notifications so you can see them. Also, please try to do that online because I would love to share my videos with you. Alright, let's get started. So I'm going to show you how I make my coffee filters flowers. Now, in an earlier video, I had showed how I actually colored these. However, if you missed that video, I will link not only my way to do it, but I will also link Hey Angela Marie's, and she can show you how to do it also. So basically, I've gotten 6 coffee filters that I have already colored. Now, you can use straight scissors, or you can use one that's got designs. So basically what you do is you take your coffee filters after they've dried, and you fold them in half. Okay? And then you take it and you fold it in half again. Okay? And once more. So you should end up with a triangle. Now, with my straight scissors, I will cut a hole in the bottom, and that is basically for our stem to go through. I apologize. And then I will take my scissors with a design, and I will basically just cut the edges off. You don't want them very straight, you want them a little bit curved. And then I go through and I cut just a bit of the top off. Now you've got to be quite careful because once you start folding that many coffee filters, it becomes quite difficult to get the scissors through, but it is possible. And as you can see, they've now got a bit of a design. Okay, and as many of you know, I don't like to throw anything away because there is a way to use just about everything. So these are the stems from previous flowers. So what I do is I clip a piece off about as long as I want my stem for my flowers. Now, you can use regular Elmer's glue. I prefer to use my glue gun because I like things done quickly, if you will. So basically all you do, as you can see, this is the coffee filter that has already been folded and the edges have been cut, and then an opening. So basically what you do is you take your glue gun and you just put a small bit of glue on the mouth on the bottom and then some up the side. You take your metal, you find where you want to start it, give it about 2-3 seconds to actually hold, and then all you do is roll in. And you're turning as you're rolling so that way you will get a nice shape. Now you may have to go up every now and then and fluff it up, make it a little bit better, but there's that piece. So you just keep going about. You don't need a whole lot of glue because it is coffee filters. Now, if you were doing this from cloth, I would recommend using a little bit more glue, but you don't need all that. So again, you just keep twisting. And usually while I'm waiting for that one to glue or to dry up, I will check my petals from the top and see how they're sitting. And then I just keep going. So now you've got your very first coffee filter on. And basically what I do at this point, I will take just a small smidgen of glue and I will touch right on the edge here and basically slightly tap it. So that way, I mean, I want my blooms to be full, but I don't want them so full that they don't look real. So as I showed you, some were done with the pinking shears, so that way they're a different design. For the center one, I tried to keep it as a typical rose would be seen. So now I'm going to go with another one of my coffee filters, and the process is exactly the same. A little bit on the bottom and go up a little bit. Now what I do is I try to find the seam where I completed the last one, and I try to go on the opposite side of it, so that way all my seams are not lined up with each other, because most roses do not look perfect. Again, I let that sit there for a few seconds to make sure it's good and adhered, and then I start rolling. Now you can continue to put the glue here, or you can actually put a little bit here. I don't do that because sometimes I will move my coffee filter up a smidgen, and sometimes I will move it down. So I generally just put it on the bottom and roll. And as you can see, we have now completed the second coffee filter, and I'm going to go back and put just a little bit of glue right where I had before on the previous one. And I just tap it so that way it's down. Now as you can see, we're starting to get a bit of a definition here. We've got the straight edges, and then now we have the pinking edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another one with the pinking and do the process yet again. Now when I start out a new one, I just do a very little bit, and that is so that way I can get it situated. So there's the end, so let's go on the opposite side, and let's put it down. Hold it there for, like I said, 2-3 seconds to make sure that it is actually adhered to the previous coffee filter. And then we start rolling. I love to watch how a simple coffee filter that has been colored and then added to a simple piece of metal, and it starts to come alive in my hands as a bloom. Now, depending on how full you want your bloom, you can stop at 5, you can go to 6. When I wanted a very full bloom, I had actually done 12. Again, just another little pop of glue to hold that one down. This step is completely up to you. I prefer to do it because when I'm all done, I like to crunch my flowers a little bit, and I don't want pieces sticking about. So now that I've gotten 2 of them that I've used the pinking shears, I will go back and I will grab one that has been cut with rounded edges. Again, same process as we've been doing here. A little bit on the bottom and go up a little bit. You'll note as you go up, I'm sorry, if you go further with your coffee filters, you didn't necessarily have to go all the way. There's our edge from the last one. So this time, let's go a 1/4 of a turn. And we'll stick that one right there. Give it a few seconds. And then roll. I sincerely apologize for the sniffling, but I think the sniffling is better than the other option of letting it run. Once you get into the swing of just turning the coffee filter about and adhering it to your flower, it goes quite quickly. Some people say they've burnt their fingers, and I guess you can. I guess I'm a bit more stingy on the glue. I don't get a whole lot, but just a few little spider webs, if you will. So as you can see, my bloom is actually starting to take shape. So because this is going to be the centerpiece of all the other flowers around it, I want this one to be very big. So I'm going to continue with making these. And when I'm all done, I'll be back. Okay, so as you can see, I finally finished it. I have used 12 of my coffee filters. Now what we're going to do now is basically use another one of the green stems and basically just roll the edges so that way they look a little bit more like a rose, not just petals. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky for me. I usually stick it into some sort of styrofoam so I can work with two hands. And basically you just roll the edges. It doesn't have to be perfect because one of the things about roses is it looks so perfect together, but if you look at the individual petals, they're far from perfect. Some are curled, some aren't. The ones that I try to focus on mostly is up near the center because that's usually where your roses are curled the tightest. And there you go. So you can choose to put green area on or not. I do. So all I do is, you can see it still has the opening. So basically all I do is take this, push it in the center, and push it up. Okay, so this is what we're going to be using as our base. Now, yes, it is a formula can. However, you can take the paper off. It shows right here where you can cut it. So I've already taken the liberty of cutting mine off. And here it is. Now you want to keep this. Try to take it off as clean as you can, for the simple fact is you can take your cardstock paper or your scrapbook paper and basically use it as a guide. As you can see, there's a lot of different designs, and since we are using blue, I decided to use this type. Now I have already laid my cutout down. As you can see, there's a thin line, but basically all you do is you lay it down, draw a line, and then cut it. Now this I can throw away. You want to be as straight as possible because this will, either edge is going to be visible on your piece. So try to stay as straight as possible. And then your extra piece, I'm going to put it away for possibly another craft, or you could throw it away. So then what you do is you basically take your can, take the lid off. I'm going to lay mine down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the same strip that the manufacturer had used to adhere their label. Okay. And then all I'm going to do is line up my pieces. Now this is a very crucial step because if you don't put it on exactly straight, as you circle around, it will start moving down and then you're going to lose your quite sharp edge. So you just basically wrap it around. I mean, you can put glue along the way. I don't necessarily see the need for it because then it's going to show an indentation, or it's going to pop out just a bit as to where that glue was. So now I've come to the edge, and basically all I do is I go right beside it and I put another thin line. I pull my paper and I lay it down. Now you will see that there are some glue, and the reason why I do that is so that way I can basically smooth it down so it gives me a nice clean edge. Now obviously this is going to be the back of the can, and that's going to be the front. So that part is done. Now you can leave the can empty, you can add things in it. For me, I'm going to leave it empty because I'm actually going to be gluing this to the lid. So that way whoever receives this, they can decide if they want to use this as a hiding spot to put change or something important, and nobody would realize that it is actually a flower arrangement that opens up with stuff in it. So now we're going to set this off to the side. And what I do at this point is I look at the lid and I lay the lid down. And I try to find the exact center as much as I can. And then I just take one of my metal stems and create an outline. So that way when I'm putting the glue on, I know to stay within that. And as you can see, possibly you can't, but there is a very thin indentation as to where that lid went. So then at that point, all I do, let me put a little bit more glue in my glue gun, or else I won't make it all the way around. Okay, so all I do at that point is I mean, you don't have to go glue happy and load it down, because styrofoam does glue quite well to plastic. You can use E6000 if you feel that it's needed. So I've got the glue, and I just take my lid and I basically copy where I had made the indentation, and then I just hold it down so that way the glue adheres, because the lid has a little bit of a lip right there. So you want to make sure that you're pressing down so that way it's definitely glued to the styrofoam, not just the rim of the lid. And as you can see, it's only been a few seconds and it's already quite thick, or quite stuck. So what I do is I just go around with a very thin line of glue. If you've ever caulked a window or put a seam on a back sink, it's very similar. And I let that dry. So sometimes I will go ahead and put my moss down. And the reason why I do the moss is so that way you don't have to have it completely overloaded with your flowers. I got my moss from Family Dollar. I paid $1. So all I do is I grab a little bit. Now I'm going to go off camera for just a second so I can do it over the garbage so it doesn't get all over my workspace. Again, you don't need a whole lot. So that's about all I'm going to use. And it just helps cover up most of the white. Now for this step, I would recommend using a bit of glue because this stuff will come up quite easy if you don't. Okay, and then you just basically put it on wherever you see fit. Now you'll notice that I concentrate more on the edges than I do in the center. And that is because I want some of it to come over the edge. But don't get too concerned. This is going to be covered with a ribbon, so you won't really see the styrofoam here. But I do like how it overflows. And if you feel that you haven't gotten enough, you can just grab a little bit more and apply it where you feel that your piece needs it. Do be careful when you're pushing down the moss because the glue may come up and you may feel it on your fingers. And it is called hot glue for a reason. So as you can see, it is now covered with the Spanish moss, along with everything else in the vicinity. So because we are using the blue flowers, you can choose to use basically any color. However, most people that know me know that I love bling. If it's got something shiny on it, I'm kind of drawn to it, almost the squirrel with the nut. So I think for me, I am going to actually use a ribbon. Okay, so since the predominant color in my piece is more of a teal color, I've gotten teal ribbon. Now, I'm not quite certain which one's going to be my end piece, so I'm not going to focus on burning the edge just yet. So basically I prefer to turn it upside down so the moss will move down a bit. You can put this on before the moss. I just prefer to do it afterwards. So you take your glue gun and you just make a bit of a start. And you put it down. Now when I do this, obviously you can see that my ribbon is not as thick as the styrofoam. So I focus more on the bottom because my flowers will come down and cover this piece. And then you basically just go around every little bit and put some glue. Now I will tell you, glue does dry very quickly on styrofoam, so do not go all the way around with your glue because it will become dry before you get to it. And I personally think that's a waste of glue if you have to keep gluing over the same spot over and over again. But that's just me, whatever makes you comfortable, quite honestly. Alright, so obviously this is going to be my end piece. Now, one thing about ribbon is it will fray. So I just take a simple lighter and burn the edges. You don't want to burn it, just hot enough so that way it will become melted so it doesn't fray. I am truly sorry about the sniffling. I'm sure it's quite annoying. And there you go. We've now got a ribbon covering the vast majority of our styrofoam. The other thing I learned is that when you're working with the moss, what you might want to do is actually spray it with hairspray. That will help the moss stay sitting. However, I don't particularly like to use it. I like the more flowing look. So now comes the fun part of figuring out where we're going to put our flowers. Now for me, I like to put it straight in the center and then work outwards. Some people like to start from the outwards or the outside and work in. So I'm guessing that that's about halfway. I'm going to put just a bit of glue on the bottom of my stem. Now you do want to be careful that you don't pop all the way through to the plastic. And you can basically flip it over and feel where it's coming. So as you can see, maybe, there's a little bubble right there. So my rose is in. So some of these, again, I'm sorry, all of these were made by using the tissue paper method that Hey Angel Marie showed. Once again, I will put the description on how she made these into, the link into the description So that way, if you want to make them out of the tissue paper rather than the coffee filters, you can follow her video. She is a phenomenal instructor to learn from. Now, as you can tell, these stems are quite large. I don't need all those stems because they basically cover up our main focal point. So I just go through and I cut down what I don't need. And you will do this to all of your pieces. Okay, so I have cut all of my stems down, and I've also picked up some of my white roses that I'd gotten from the Dollar Tree. So I like to mix my tissue flowers with my real flower or cloth flowers. So basically, okay, so I have put my piece up onto my Lazy Susan, so that way I can just move my piece about whenever I'm putting the flowers on. So let's start. Again, your styrofoam is not very thick, so you don't want to push so far down. And you'll notice that I'm putting the white roses up a little bit higher than the tissue ones, and that is to basically give some sort of depth. Okay, so then now all I'm going to do is go back in and basically put my little flower, my tissue flowers underneath of my white roses. Okay, so I've determined that this is going to be my front. So I'm just going to add a little bit more flowers. Sorry, I'm trying not to put my hands in front of the actual piece so you can see what I'm doing. Now, when you're making something like this, you need to be cognizant that just because you think that's the front of it, whoever purchases your piece or whoever you give your piece to, they may not see it as the center. So you don't want to get so blinded on one part that you're not cognizant that the receiver of this may be like, I like this side better. So I try to not focus so much on one side. But I'm not going to lie, when I'm making it, I generally see a piece that I'm like, okay, that is going to be my front. Okay. So I've got all of those in. And that's what it's looking like so far. Now, as you can see, there is still some, what I would call dead space, because it could afford to use some pretty stuff in there. So I will show you how to fix that. Okay, so as we were talking about the dead spaces, you can use baby's breath, the greens from the stems that you've used in previous ones. I'm going to use both. And the reason why I do that is because I don't want it all to be just blue and white. So I'm going to add some greenery. And basically all you do is you take your green, put a little bit of glue on the back of it, and then you find a spot that it looks like it can go, and you push it down in there. You can use the stems to stick it in. I prefer just to glue it in, because I like to have that little opening right there, so that way I can add beads or crystals or something. Okay, I am back. As you can see, I put some greenery. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of the baby breath. Now, I personally like to put the baby breath up closer to the top, so that way it gives it some height. Again, you can use the stem, or you can just glue it in. I personally like to glue it in. So you just put a little bit of glue on the bottom. Find where you want to put it, which I think right here looks perfect. And I glue it in. I grab another piece. Try to clean it up a little bit so it doesn't look like it's been through the war. Again, a little bit more glue on the base of the baby's breath. They have another name for it, but I can't say it, so I'm not gonna try. And I basically stick it in there. Now you want to be careful that you don't add too much, because then it takes away from, in my opinion, what we are basically trying to focus here, and that is the tissue papers. Again, a little bit more glue. Finding opening and put it in there. There. Now you're probably wondering what I'm going to do to cover up this. So I personally like to use like pearls or beads, something that, you know, brings it a little bit more glam. So I will be right back as soon as I get all of the beads that we're going to use. Okay, so what I'm going to use is I'm going to use these off-white. I also have the bigger ones, but I much prefer to use these little ones. Now these little ones I got from Michael's probably about a year ago, so I can't really remember exactly how much I paid, So basically all I do is I take one out, try not spilling them as I'm doing it, and then all that I do is take a little bit of glue, put it on the pearl, and I stick it in. Again, another pearl. Not that one, because it decided to run off. And right down in the center of my greenery. I think I've covered the centers of all my greenery. Yep. So seal these up before they run off again. What do you think so far? Right, so we have finished our base and we have finished our top. And basically you find the back, and for me, I like this to be the front. The good thing about the styrofoam is it will help you push down the lid. And there you go. It looks very rustic, and if you didn't touch this, you would think that this is actually wood. Now, as you can see the metal. So you can cover that. I personally like it because it looks almost like the bottom of like a bourbon barrel. It's got the rim. And there you have it. I just want to thank everybody for staying with me throughout the video. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And if you can take just a few more seconds and make sure that you hit the like button and the subscribe. And if you do have a chance to make what I've shown you, I would love to see it. You can find me on my Instagram and Facebook, and I will put all of that information in the description box. Again, thank you and have a great day.